Hey there, everybody. I guess you're here to learn about some maps. Today we're going to cover assignment 2-1. My name is Corey Bungie Bauer. I will try and help you out here. This is definitely starting to increase in difficulty from the Chapter 1 assignments. So hopefully you have done the tutorial for Chapter 2. If not, just press pause, go back and do it right now, because this can make a whole lot more sense if you've gone through that. Otherwise, yeah, this is going to be a problem for you. Alright, assuming that you've done that. Assignment 2-1. It says our assignment is to create a map showing schools in the city of Pittsburgh by enrollment. So, back to the lovely city of Bridges. Did you know that Pittsburgh is the home of Heinz ketchup? If you keep listening, I'll tell you the secret about Heinz ketchup bottles that all Pittsburghers know, but a lot of other people are not aware of. The assignment starts out by asking us to load up some Pittsburgh data into the map here. So, in your map, when you go to the GIS T1 folder and data, it says data /Pittsburgh /city, and then we want both neighborhoods and schools. So if you click on neighborhoods, hold down control, click on schools, we can add them both at the same time. Kill two birds with one stone. We got both schools and neighborhoods in there. Instructions that they give us include, we want to label all the neighborhoods, we want to separate the schools by both district and status, and show the different enrollments. So that's the complicated part. The easy part is labeling neighborhoods. We've already done that before. All we need to do is double click on neighborhoods, go to labels, and the label field here, hood, is the name of the neighborhood. Label all features in this layer. But there's a little bit of a wrinkle here. It specifically says use a small dark gray font for the labels. So we're in 8-point font. How about we go down to like 6-point font or something? And dark gray, so maybe 60% or so. Let's see what that looks like if we apply that. Well, that's pretty light. Maybe we'll go 70%. Apply that. That's a little bit better. We will also need to change the alignment. So if you look at this, you see they're all jumbled together here, and it's hard to read those ones in the middle. What they suggest is that we go into the Labels tab, which we're in, go to Label Properties window, Layer Properties window, click Placement Properties. Use the conflict detection. So you see placement. You'll use that later. Conflict detection, put a buffer of 1. And all that will do is make sure that they're not all overlapping and everything. So if we hit OK, so now see they're not all jumbled together here. They're all separated by a minimum amount. The other thing that will make this a lot more readable is to not have the background be a pinkish purplish hue. Why don't we just make this, actually let's double click on this. Let's do a hollow fill maybe. Okay. Looks a little bit less colorful, but we can add some more colors later. We have all the neighborhoods labeled now. The other thing we need to do, schools. It says to put map tips on all the schools. This is different from labeling. When we go into schools, you'll notice that there is no map tips in this labels tab. You can look as long and as hard as you want. You're not going to see map tips in here. Why? I don't know. It's just not. When you go to display, though, now show map tips using the display expression. So this is going to, when you scroll over it, it's going to bring up the whatever you select in this field. So name is what we want. So hit OK. So now when we scroll over a dot here, you'll see this is the Mifflin School, this is Concord, this is Carrick, etc. Now, the second thing, if you read the hints, which is always the most important part, you want to copy, well, it says you want a second schools layer. So one way you could do that, if you went into data, you could just double click on schools and add that again right here. But we don't really want to do that. We'd rather copy this because we've already gone to the trouble of adding map tips here. So if we hit copy, then we can click on layers and we can just hit paste layers. Now we have 2 schools layers right here. So we might want to start out by making these separate colors. So maybe well, heck, let's leave this as, actually, I like the ultra blue. Let's make it bright. And then maybe we'll make this one the Mars red. Oh, Mars red, okay. Okay, now you'll notice all we're seeing on here though is the blue, because it's the same layer, just one on top of another. If you turn this layer off, then you see the red ones. So our goal for this assignment is to show them in 2 separate layers. So we have 2 layers, we need to show the 2 layers, we need to have the 2 layers show 2 different things now. What we want to do is we want to show only public schools, and this makes it even more tricky, only public schools that are currently open in this first layer here. So schools, so what you're going to do is double click on it and go to definition query. So this looks really, really confusing, really intimidating. It's really not that bad once you try and figure out what you're actually trying to do. So when you go to Query Builder, this will help you so you don't have to type everything out by hand and figure out all the syntax and where to put single quotes and double quotes and spaces and all that kind of stuff. So all we want to do, so first thing is that the school is public. Second thing is that the school is open. So actually I'm going to go back for 1 second here. If we go to the attribute table and we look at all the different fields here. So do any of these fields, do you think, indicate to you that the school might be a public school? So if we scroll through all this, you see that district right here. City of Pittsburgh is one district. Pittsburgh Diocese, those are the Catholic schools, is another district. And then private school is a 3rd district. Of course, since Catholic schools are private schools, it's kind of odd that they label non-Catholic private schools as private and Catholic private schools as Catholic, but that is the way it is. So what we want to do is use this district variable to separate the public from the private schools. So for the public schools, this is going to be fairly easy. All we have to do is find all the schools where district is public. So all we have to do is go in here, find district. Okay, so district, double click, it'll insert it down there. And so we want it to be where the district is public. So where district equals, and now public, you don't want to have to type it in the wrong way or something. If you click on unique value, get unique values here, it'll show you all the possible values. So, and this is a good thing I didn't type district equals public, because it would have come up and been like, what are you talking about, Corey? There is no public here. So what you want to do is double click on City of Pittsburgh, it inserts it there. Alright, so now everything that will show up will be in the City of Pittsburgh. But that's not good enough. We also only want the open schools. Because Pittsburgh has been a shrinking city since the decline of the steel mills, there have been a lot of schools closed as the enrollment has been declining. I should note that Pittsburgh has now finally started to rebound and started growing again in population the last few years. It's, I believe, still the only city outside of California that has a big Google office. But back to the assignment here. We also want the schools that are open. So if we want to, actually here, let's just leave this as is for 1 second. Let's go back into the attribute table. Alright, what would tell us whether it's open or closed here? So do we see anything? Well, if we look at status right here, we see open and we see that some are closed. It's actually not that many in this data set, but only, what was that, 3 schools or something? But let's go back into the definition query. Okay, so we want the district to be the city of Pittsburgh and the status to be open. So and isn't, whoops, that's not where we want it. Let's put the cursor in the right place. So and status, double click that, and then get unique values. Whoops, and I forgot to put equals. Alright, now, a really good thing to do here is to hit verify right here. It'll tell you whether it was successful or not. Because all the time you'll type something incorrectly, or you'll hit a button in the wrong direction, leave out an and, something like that, and it won't work. And it's easier to just fix that now than to have to come back into this and figure out what was wrong later if something's wrong. Plus the error message that you gives you is just really confusing. Alright, so hit open, hit OK, and OK. So now you can see we have some blue dots here, and we also have some red dots. And those are ones that are going to be the private schools. Except if we turn this layer off, we see that red is still showing all of them, whereas blue is only showing some of them. So we still have to go back and do the same thing with this layer. So while we're here, let's rename this Open Public Schools. And then let's go into this, and we're going to do the same thing. Except now it's going to be even more difficult. We want to get all private schools. So what do we say? District equals... Oh, but it's not only one. We can't just say private, because the diocese, the Catholic schools, are also private schools. So diocese or district, and you got to hit district again here, equals private. Double click. Okay, so now if it's Pittsburgh Diocese or if it's a private school, that'll be counted. And we want to still the same status equals open in here. Same thing as the public schools. So status equals open. Okay? And hit OK. And so now if we turn off these blue ones, we see they disappear and only the red ones are left. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to show the differences in schools by enrollment. Because the task, it says, is to make a map for the school board comparing the enrollment of public and private schools. By the way, before we move on to this task, now would be an interesting time to note that on the Heinz bottle, if you look at the neck, there is a little tiny 57. If you want your ketchup to pour out smoothly, and this is on the glass bottles, you hit the little number 57 on the neck of the bottle with the side of your hand. You don't want to hit the bottom of the bottle because then it'll all go bloop and come out in one big lump and go all over your plate. So the true Pittsburghers know that you hit the neck of the bottle where it says 57 on the Heinz bottle. Alright, back to the task at hand here. We want to make these symbols bigger or smaller based on the size of the school. So let's start with let's label these open private schools here. Okay. In symbology, we want bigger and smaller. So we don't see anything that would match that phrase. So bigger and smaller is graduated. We don't want colors. That would be a chloropleth map. We want graduated symbols. So you can see on this picture right here, these are bigger and smaller dots pretty much. How do we want them to get bigger or smaller? We want that based on the enrollment. So this is enroll is going to be the variable that's the enrollment of the school. So here are the options it automatically gives us. So you notice that it already tried to change our color here. So let's stick with our ultra blue. No plain blue, ultra blue. We want the very best. So is this a good way to classify it? I don't know, maybe. We can look. So what it did is it kind of tried to space it out by the breakpoints, but you see that almost all of them are going to fall in these two categories. And so they're almost all going to be the same size dot. We'd really like to have more variation than that to really be able to see what's going on. So we can classify this in a number of different ways. We could set manual breakpoints. We could set equal intervals. So we can see that they get equally spaced apart if we do it that way. We could do a defined interval. So if we wanted an interval size of, let's say, 100, so every 100, there's a bigger size dot. Now you see the biggest schools are 1,500, so that's going to be a lot of different size dots. And hit OK. Now see the range we have in the dots, and they're all going to grow from tiny to big here. So hit OK, and so now there we go. So we can see that the Lecce Gifted Center here, and Alderdice over here, and Carrick here. These are the larger schools. I don't think that was Lecce that was that big. I think that was, that's a different school there. let's see here. That can't be right. There we go. The Technical Institute. Okay, back to the previous one. Now, all we want to do is do the same thing with the private schools. Graduated, not categories, not quantities. Graduated symbols by enrollment. Tried to change our color again. I want my Mars red in here. You can pick whatever color you want. Just make sure it looks different and it stands out from the background. And then do the exact same, however you did the public schools, we're going to do the exact same way here. So, because we don't want one size dot to mean one thing for public and a different thing for private. So the way that it was doing it, you see that this biggest category is 450 to 875. That would be a lot different. So defined interval, so if we do 100 again, now you see we don't have the same large schools here. Yeah, that's not right though. We don't want this dot. See how this dot's the same size as this dot? We want this dot to be the same size as this dot right here. So we got to go back in here and look at this. Defined interval. What we can do here now, instead of having the defined intervals, if we go to classify, so you see that, let's say we do quantile here, or equal interval, or natural breaks. So what we really want, let's have fewer classes. Let's do 5, but then let's switch to manual. Because what we want to do is we need to make it the exact same. So how about we just count by 200s? So start at the bottom, because if you start at the top, what'll happen if you try to put 200 here, then it won't, it'll screw around, it'll move over that one. It won't let you make a value bigger than the one below it. So start and do 1,000, 800, 600, 400, and 200, and enter. So you can see that a lot of the private schools are under 200, but that's okay, because what we really want to know is how comparable they are to public schools. So if we hit OK, and then hit OK. Now we need to do the same thing with the public schools here. Let's go to classify. Let's make 5 categories. Manual. You notice you can't change this under manual for some reason, so you'll need to switch to one of these. Just change the number 5 and then go back to manual. So 1,000, 800, 600. Hey. Come on. 400 and 200. And actually we want to make this all the way up to the top, 1553. So now we have the exact same scale. You go back and change this one though. Make this 1553. Oh, that does include one school, so that was my fault in the first place. Alright, so now we can see the same size schools have the same dots. So 600, schools with 650 kids would have the same dot whether they're public or private. That's key. That's how we want to have our map. You can have slightly different colors, you can have more or fewer categories, but you have to have them the same for private versus public. The last thing that we need here is to add a hyperlink to Alderdice. So it says that Alderdice is in South Squirrel Hill. I think I already scrolled over that. This should be Alderdice right here. So there are a number of ways of selecting Alderdice. If you want to select element, if you want to click on Alderdice, come on. Yeah, sometimes that thing's a pain in the butt. A way to get around this would be to open attribute table, sort by name. There you go, Alderdice starts with A. Now it's selected. Then all you have to do is go to this. So this is selected. Not that layer. Come on. In public schools. Really? Maybe you can pain in the butt. Come on. Alderdice. There we go. Now, if you right-click on Alderdice, you can add a hyperlink. So they say pghboe.org or net in the book. That address will take you to the Pittsburgh Public Schools page, but the correct link, well, I think the correct link is now like pps.k12.pa.gov or something like that. We can do, let's do this one. This is simpler. pghboe.net. Oh, typed in the wrong one. www.pghboe.net. Hit OK. And close that. Now if we click on the select hyperlink, if we scroll over this, we'll get a little blue dot. And it says pghboe.net. Double click on it. And here we go. It's open the Pittsburgh Public Schools page. So see PGH, it's right there, the correct address. You can get all sorts of propaganda and information about Pittsburgh Public Schools on this page. Feel very special. Okay, so that's everything we need to do for this assignment. We can check it against our grading checklist here. So we have open private schools on the map. Check open private schools. Open public schools. Check open public schools. Larger and smaller symbols, or graduated symbols, would be the technical term. So yes, we can see that there are some really small ones and some really large ones. Check. We have the same scale for public and private schools. So we can see that, this school and this school, Shenley and Central Catholic, are both within that same range, so they're both the same size. So check. And then the neighborhoods are labeled, and the names are not overlapping, and they're in light gray, so check. And that's it. I got 100 on the assignment. I hope you did too. If you haven't figured everything out yet, feel free to rewind and enjoy this video over and over again. The end.